Hello, everybody. My name is Gabe DeSanto, president of OHSCA. I'm glad to be here for the first episode of the OHSCA interview series. The format for this series is simple. First, we start off with an introduction like I'm doing now. Then we go into a question and answer session with questions asked by members, followed by friendly chat about conservatism, and then our conclusion wrap up. Today, we are glad to have Julius Tiangson joining us. Julius recently ran in the York Center by-election, and he came very close to winning. He was defeated by just under 1,000 votes and almost secured a GTA seat. This, as you know, must have been a great achievement for Julius's team and for the CPC as a whole. It shows that we're moving forward in a new direction and that we can win in these great urban centers. Julius is an active member of his community in the Filipino community, and he runs a company that helps many people in his community and around the world. Welcome, Julius, to our show. Thanks for your time.
Well, thank you, Gabe, for having me in this maiden interview. And delighted that I can be part of this process. And I just wanted to assure you that the conservative movement is alive and well in the GTA area, particularly in York Center. And just happy that we came very close to winning, actually, and have that seat for the Conservative Party. 701 votes, that's our deficit. So it is a winnable riding. It is a riding that is truly becoming more and more awake and more aware also of what is happening with the federal government, as well as what is happening also locally. So once again, I just wanted to say that the conservative movement is alive and well in the Greater Toronto area.
We're really glad to hear that because in order to win the next election, we need to really flip all these seats and get more people to join the conservative movement. And the Conservative Party is for everyone. Everybody can join. Everyone can feel welcome in our party. And we're really glad to have great candidates like you who are really in touch with your community, who can meet a bunch of people and let them join the party. And also, it's great because people are starting to know you. And this was just a by-election. In the federal election, when more people are on the road, when maybe when the pandemic is over possibly, and you can reach out to more people, or even if it is keeps on going, as more people start to hear, I think that York Center, and along with a lot of GTA ridings, have a
Mhm.
chance of turning blue. So
Well, there's a lot of, if I can just interject,
yeah,
Gabe, there's a lot of work that needed to be done in order to win a riding. Um, One of the things that we often would say is that, hopefully there's going to be a swing in such a way that conservatives can actually win. But I'm taking it from a different tack, or at least I'm approaching it from a different tack. One of which is to actually do the hard work, that of door knocking and making sure that the areas where we have not made any inroads, we actually would visit. And I'm proud to say that we have door knocked over 30,000 homes. And I have personally visited as a candidate in York Center every single poll in there and door knock as much as possible. So there's no easy path to winning. But if we actually put our heads together and put the kind of time and work that is needed, we can win any seat in the Greater Toronto area.
I'm really glad to hear that because I think you put a lot of hard work into it, and we really applaud you and your campaign. And it's rare, well, not necessarily rare, but that you went to every single house and everybody in the community got to meet you, which is a great thing. So if you ever become their MP, they will know who you are. They're like, oh, he came to visit my door and we
That's
talked
right.
about such and such. And you get to meet more people. We're really
Mm-hmm.
glad, and we were inspired by your campaign because we knew that you almost flipped that, and that this is the turning of a new leaf. We're starting to see a big change in Canada. So we're going to go into the question and answer session.
Sure.
These questions are actually all asked by our team and from members of our team. And these are all high school students that are in our group. The OHSCA is the Ontario High School Conservative Association.
Amazing.
These are all conservative high schoolers. So the first one is from the OHSCA team. And we touched a bit on this, but we saw you run in York Center, GTA riding, and you almost won. Do you think that more of this is going to happen in the next election, and do you plan on running again?
Well, the reality is the conservative movement is gaining a lot of traction in many parts of the country, and I would even dare to say that it is gaining even more traction in the Greater Toronto area, primarily because there are a number of policies that I think Canadians have become aware regarding the Liberal government of Justin Trudeau, one of which is fiscal responsibility. I honestly believe that if we don't get this Liberal government actually accountable, that you in your generation would actually be saddled with a tremendous fiscal deficit. And so it is so important that we get that message out and making sure that the message of the Conservative Party and the Conservative movement will be actually heard, and that of being fiscally responsible. Now, in terms of other things that needed to be done in order for us to actually win the York Center as well as gain more traction, is to make sure that we actually converse, we actually make sure that we actually, I would say, make known what is it to be a modern conservative in this era. I, for one, I am a fiscal conservative, a social libertarian also as well. I believe also in individual freedom of rights and individual freedom and individual rights. And very important in this day and age when more and more of our civil liberties, our civil law is being suspended. Partly because I would say greatly because of what is happening right now globally with our health crisis. So it is very important that we get the message of what the modern conservative movement is all about in the Greater Toronto area. And it is also important that as you, high schoolers, young people, can take responsibility also as well in your political involvement because it is so important that young people should be engaged, not only in terms of volunteering, but making sure that volunteering in the Conservative Party, but volunteering in your community, volunteering in many municipal organizations or city organizations in such a way that the face of the conservative movement is actually being represented in there, not just this typical what the Liberal Party and the Liberal government would portray us, or at least the media would portray us as old white men who are actually manning the Conservative Party. Well, we have young conservatives that are actually involved in the community level and making sure that the conservative movement is actually being represented properly and being painted properly, not just being smeared by the political left. Now, in terms of any potential run in York Center, yes, I am very interested again in winning once again because we are a party of process in making sure that I win that nomination once again and be the official candidate for the Conservative Party in potentially a federal snap election that is probably going to happen in maybe the next 2 or 3 months. We will see. So I would count on you guys to continue to support me in my campaign and making sure that we can turn York Center blue.
Yeah, and as we see the Conservative Party, every day we look at their Twitter account and their press releases, and every day we're starting to see more and more candidates pop up. Congratulations to our candidate in York Center or in Sarnia-Lambton. I think yesterday Marilyn Gladu, she was just confirmed to get it again. And all these candidates, we're starting to see more things coming on, and all the candidates are starting to jump on the Conservative train and get ready for the next election.
That's amazing. Yeah. I'm beginning to see that also as well in my Twitter feed.
Yeah. Question 2 is from Jairi. He's in Brampton. And he wants to know, do you think the CPC does enough to make immigrants and new Canadians feel welcome in the party? And how can we get them to join our Conservative family and learn more about us?
Well, this is the myth that the left or those in the political left has painted against the Conservative Party. If I can just take you back a little bit of a history lesson, way back in the 1960s, when John Baker was actually the prime minister, and his first immigration minister, who happens to be a woman, was Eleanor Fairclough. Eleanor Fairclough actually introduced the whole concept of the point system, our modern day immigration point system. The result of that introduction, and it was introduced in 1967, the result of that introduction
which was done on the basis of a regulatory change within our Immigration Act. The consequence of that introduction is that it opened the floodgate of immigrants from all over the world as a result of that point system. Now, many people do not know that, or at least, many people are being kept in the dark of that very important change in our regulatory framework. But in as much as the political left would actually paint the conservative movement in this country as not open to immigration, that is false. The reality is we were the ones, we are the party that actually opened the floodgate of immigrants from all over the world through the immigration point system that we have. Now, contrary to many of what the Liberal Party would actually paint us, we are a party that is quite diverse, very diverse. We have had our first Vietnamese senator. We have our first Muslim member of parliament. We have our first black member of parliament also as well. Many of the first that is in this country happened within the Conservative Party movement or the conservative movement in this country. But nevertheless, the Conservative Party is not necessarily out to make sure that we do this the first time or do this, by opening by quota system or being the first woman or being the first black or being the first Filipino. We are all about making sure that everyone would have equal opportunity regardless of their race, regardless of their religion, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their background. Because what we needed are actually competent people and not just people who got in simply because there is a quota for them to actually join our movement. No, it isn't so. We believe in equal opportunity and making sure that everyone would have the same rules to follow so that if you actually work hard and follow what the system is asking you to do, you will have a fair chance and a fair opportunity to succeed and be part also of a political movement like the Conservative Party.
Well, we see the liberals, they're so keen on their identity politics. But the problem with identity politics is that it creates a divide. It's important
Yes.
that we expand our conservative family and have people of all backgrounds join us. But unlike the liberals, we actually have them and let them join us and treasure them for what they bring, not just because of the way they are. And the liberals, as you see, their cabinet has to be perfect. 50-50 men
Yes.
and women, this color, that color. And at that point, it's less about politics and being competent and more about look
Yes.
at what we're doing. And I feel that the
Yes.
Conservative Party is different because we treasure the backgrounds of everybody, but that's not what we that's not why they are candidates. They are candidates because they're smart and because they bring something to the party and they share our beliefs.
Well, let me reiterate or probably echo what Martin Luther King said, that we are to be judged by the content of our character
Yeah,
and not by the color of our skin. And may I add also that we would be actually be included in a political movement, not based on the color of our skin, but the abilities or the competence of our character or competence of our individuality. So uh, that is something that I really would like to emphasize quite uh, obviously, simply because the political left is very good in smearing us and smearing the conservative as a racist organization or a racist movement. It isn't so. Otherwise, a person like myself who came from the Philippines 35, 36 years ago with only $65 in my wallet would not be able to succeed in this country. If this country is truly a racist country and it is founded on that heinous human condition, then people like myself will not succeed. But because I have succeeded, and not just myself, but millions of people have succeeded and have been able to taste the success that Canada has to offer, this country is an incredible country, and we ought to make sure that it remains like that. Not just because we would like to make sure that people will be represented by virtue of the color of their skin. No, it should be by their abilities, by their competence, by their desire to make this country a better place.
that's very well said. And I like how you quoted Martin Luther King Jr. because he was a great activist and he really brought
Mhm.
forward a lot of the things that we think about today. in the way that we do things and how we view each other and how we respect each other. Now, question 3 is from Kihan, who's actually one of our members that is in India. He's actually in India.
Oh,
He's
wow.
one of our high school members. And he wants to know, how do you feel about the political and economic rapid emergence of China in our world, and how their government is really a big dominant player in the way the world is going, and how would you address it if elected, and how would you talk about their power? We know that Aaron O'Toole is a big he likes to speak out and make sure that everything is right. And what do you think about it?
Well, there's a few comments regarding China. I think when I would say the developed world, or those who are in the G7 and G20 countries more than 20, 25 years ago, have allowed China to join the World Trade Organization. And it allowed China to join the World Trade Organization on the basis of an assumption. The assumption is that they would become fair actors in the economic playground of the world. Unfortunately, that has been proven otherwise. And so it looks like China is heading towards economic hegemony, which is very dangerous, very dangerous. It has shown that the areas in which we have been concerned about 20, 25 years ago, particularly the whole individual rights and human rights issues, have not really been addressed. A case in point right now, 2 of our Canadian citizens are being held without any cause in China for more than 2 years already. And all because, we have made one of their executives responsible for being a bad actor in the economic playground that we have here globally. So that in itself should show us concern. That should show us some pause in terms of our relationship with China. And we need to make sure that we would continue to make them accountable for how they would behave economically in the world. In as much as the G7 and the G20 countries at that time have allowed them to be part of the World Trade Organization, I think there should be an opportunity for us to revisit that and to make sure that some the rules that we have in terms of how we function globally in our economies and our interaction as nations in between our economies, that we would in fact hold China accountable for their actions. Some of the things that I have read concerning their extension of debt or sovereign debt to other sovereign countries have not necessarily amounted to anything other than almost a confiscation, really, of important infrastructure of those countries that they have extended sovereign debt. And the consequence of that is China has been able to establish almost like not only an economic foothold, but a very strong, I would say, sovereign presence in the country that they have extended their economic grip. So there is concern. Secondly, in the whole aspect of intelligence and intellectual property, the influence of China in our school system, in many of our institutions, have resulted in us actually being vulnerable to our intellectual property and our ability to actually innovate. And so this is something that we need to make sure that China is held accountable.
That's a really good answer, and it's also something to really think about nowadays as the world is going through this big pandemic, and we're relooking the way that we do things economically, and we're re-examining how we really interact with other countries, and it's really been an
That's right.
opportunity. And it's a really good way to understand our allies and also who else is working with us, and really examine what is important, what we hold near to us, and our beliefs, and how we align those with the beliefs of other countries.
Well, from you know, I'm currently a private citizen and really observing what is happening. Really, it looks like more and more China is uh, wielding its economic clout and wielding also its ability to actually control countries by virtue of the fact that their presence is not just economic presence, but they have cultural presence also as well. They have invested in many of the media organizations in North America and around the world. So that in itself is beginning to dictate a certain propaganda type of which is favorable to China. And so these are some of the things that we really need to revisit in terms of relationship with China. And so if I am to be a member of parliament representing York Center, I would be pushing our Conservative Party towards really a strong review and making sure that the economic presence as well as the cultural presence of China here in our institutions, as well as in our economy, would actually be put in check and making sure that we can hold China accountable for their actions.
That's a really good answer, and I really want to thank you for that great detailed response and the little lesson in what the little history about the World Trade Organization and how they brought in China and all the different things that we need to think about today. Now, I'm going to combine question 4 and 5 because they really link together. So it's from Wesley, Mississauga, and also from our OHSCA team. And they ask, what would you like to see happen within the CPC in the future? And how can they attract more young people to the party? Since, you know, the young people are the future of the party. We have a lot of way to go. And our young people today are going to be the new leaders of tomorrow. And how do you think that they can get involved and how they can and how everybody can bring the CPC in the future? Like what do you think will happen in the future?
Well, I have three answers or three things that I'd like uh, in order to answer that question. First is from an organization or from a national organization point of view, we need to have a stated goal that we would like to establish a movement or an organization that would really reach out towards our high school students, making sure that our high school students become engaged in the political process. And person like yourself, you know, needed to be given prime time, you know, in our movement in such a way that we would use you and your movement and the people that you work with as examples that it is possible that we can attract actually high schoolers towards the conservative movement. So there has to be something that is really stated as a goal of our Conservative Party. The second thing is within the local level, riding associations. Very important that every single riding association within the Conservative Party need to have at least one representative, a high school representative, who is a 14-year-old and above, a representative in the ward level, making sure that we actually bring in somebody who will be part of the Conservative Party riding association in the ward level, not just to become a member, not just to sell you a membership in order for you to vote in a nominations meeting, but for you to actually shape the direction of the riding association. And then thirdly, also as well, I think it's very important that when we get into a campaign, that we actively reach out to high schoolers like yourself, anyone who is 40 years old and above. They may not be able to vote, but they sure can be part of the campaign team and could be part of a concerted outreach in such a way that they can be involved in the political process within the campaign and within the riding level.
That is something really that I think a lot of high schoolers need to think of, and a lot of today's youth are more left leaning, and that is perfectly okay. Everybody is entitled to their own beliefs and opinions, but for those of us that are conservative, we really need to think of the fact that the Conservative Party is our party as well. It's the party of everyone, of the older people, of the younger people, of everybody and how we can get involved. And a lot of people don't notice that they can get their membership at 14 years old. And even though they can't
Yes.
vote in general elections, that they can be involved within their party from the age of 14. They can vote in their leadership race. They can be on their EDAs and their riding associations and really get involved and help shape their party that they will be joining, that they'll be part of, that they are part of, and that will determine our future, who may have a chance to govern. And this party that will govern will impact us, and we need to make sure that the choices that they make are the ones that are that are right for us tomorrow.
That's correct. Well, you're doing a very good job there, Gabe, and I just want to commend you and the people that you're working with, the young people that you're working with. Keep up with what you're doing, and get the message to be spread around.
Thank you. So I just want to, we talked a lot about conservatives and young conservatives and how they can get involved. And what do you think? What's one good piece of advice that you can share with the youth and how they can get involved, and what you've already touched on how they can get involved?
Yes. Well, let me reiterate again. Perhaps first is buy a membership. Become an active member of the Conservative Party.
It's not that
Own
expensive.
that membership.
It's not that
It's only
expensive.
$50.
$50 for
Only
5 years.
$50. Yes. And own that membership, making sure that you are the one who's paying for it. And as much as maybe your parents may be able to pay for it, but own that membership, and you can raise that money through the allowances that you may be getting on setting aside just $15 every single year, right? Or $50 in 5 years. So number one, own that membership. And secondly, be really active within the riding association. And then thirdly, find mentors. Surround yourself with good conservative mentors that would constantly lead you towards shaping your own political ideology and political ideals and political goals also as well. Making sure that you are constantly connected with conservative movement. Read good books, about conservatism, and making sure that and magazines. And there's so many avenues in which you can inform or get informed, either through a subscription to a podcast or a subscription to a newsletter or anything like that. There is so much that is available out there that conservative youth can avail of, and making sure that they shape their conservative mind and to push back on the push towards the left by many of our institutions here in Canada.
Well, I really want to thank you for giving so much great advice to our youth and to myself and to so many. And there are a lot of good resources, and they're very close to us online. We just look at your local MP if they're conservative. Look at their website. I'm sure they have a newsletter.
Yes.
If you don't have a conservative MP, look to your next riding that may have a conservative MP, and
That's
stay up
right.
to date with your candidate if they're already chosen. Follow them on their social media. That's probably one of the first places that a lot of their info is going to come out. Look at their websites and make sure that you see a lot of great info. There's a lot of info, and I know that the media our mainstream media is really left focused, but there's a lot of other good sources out there to look at, and keep your mind open and look at everything. And there's so much good resources for us conservatives. And even though we're in a society where we have a federal liberal government, and we have a lot of media surrounding us that is left wing, but there's also the right wing stuff, and it's really great to look at it, and it's how we can get involved.
All right.
So thank you for your time today. We really appreciate you being with us, and we wish you well on your future endeavors of running again in the next election and wherever else they may take you. And do you have anything else, any other final remarks or advice or something that you'd like to tell our youth and to your to the members of your community and everybody who wants to who sees this video.
Yes. There is a movement towards silencing the conservative voice in this country and in this continent and perhaps around the world. It is very important that young people begin to speak up and speak out. That regardless of your political affiliation, whether on the left or on the right, the very first thing that you need to protect is your ability to speak and to speak freely. And that is so important because if you having a voice, regardless whether it is coming from the political right or the political left, if that voice is being suppressed, you've lost a very important fundamental freedom. And that freedom is inalienable. That truth is inalienable. And so we ought to stand up and make sure that we make our voice heard and we stand and be counted in making sure that our freedom, our individual freedom is protected with everything that we've got. And so my encouragement to you and to your movement, be courageous, stand strong, and God bless you.
Thank you, Julius. That was some really good advice today. We really thank you for joining us on the show on our very first episode. This was definitely a great start to our show. And that's it. We hope that you really enjoyed our first interview, all the viewers. You can look for more videos coming soon. Make sure to follow our social media, Twitter and Instagram accounts on Ontario HS Cons for some more info about our next interview. You'll be hearing about our next interview soon. It'll be probably same time, same place next week. And for more great content, we do a lot of great things. We have a lot of content coming out, not just videos, but we also have articles and information sliders. So make sure to look out for it. And make sure to look at our website at sites.google.com/view/Ontario HS Conservatives to learn more about us, to see our calendar of project releases, and for more great content. That's your one-stop shop to see everything that we do. All our content is going to be there. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and click the notification bell so you never miss a video. Julius, we really thank you for joining us today. We wish you well, and we hope to see you again soon. Maybe you can come back on the show, maybe as an MP or maybe during a campaign or something.
Oh, would love
We'd love to have you back. I know today's episode, I'm sure you had a lot more to say. We have a lot more questions, and we thank you for everything that you have given to us today and helped us learn. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.